All right, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the Form 1023 application for recognition of exemption. So let's get started. Part 5. Part 5 is compensation and other financial arrangements with your officers, directors, trustees, employees, and independent contractors. Now, your officers, directors, and trustees are the people who will serve on your board of directors. Now, you may call the members or the people who serve on your board of directors officers, or you may refer to them as directors, or you may refer to them as trustees. That's your choice. However, in section 1A, we're going to list the names, titles, and mailing addresses of all of your board of directors members, which are either called officers, directors, and trustees. For each person listed, state their total annual compensation or proposed compensation for all services to the organization, whether as an officer, employee, or other position. Use actual figures if available. Enter none if no compensation is or will be paid. If additional space is needed, attach a separate sheet. Refer to the instructions for information on what to include as compensation. In this section 1A, we're referring to the board of directors. And we have listed, or I have listed as an example, the names, positions, mailing addresses, and compensation amounts for these fictional people who will be on the board of directors. So, for example, you have James Bond, who is also the executive director of the nonprofit organization, as the president, his mailing address, and compensation amount. Members of the board of directors are not paid a compensation, so for each member you put the word none in the compensation column. Normally, the positions or the titles in which each person has on the board of directors are either president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and at large. Now, you will see the titles of board members differently depending on what document you are looking at. But whatever title you choose for the board of directors and list on this application is how the Internal Revenue Service expects you to refer to them. So that's the first section of people who are going to be a part of your organization, the board of directors. So let's go now to the next page, which is part 5, and we'll continue. But we have to wait for our system to get caught up. I apologize. Just wait for just a moment for our system to get caught up with us. Okay, now we're still with part 5, but we're on section B. This time we're listing the names, titles, and mailing addresses of each of your 5 highest compensated employees who receive or will receive compensation of more than $50,000 per year. So in this section B, we're listing all of the people on your team, the 5 highest people, the 5 highest compensated employees, people you're going to pay, that's going to be making more than $50,000 per year. In this example, we don't have anybody that falls into that category, so we put not applicable here. But if you had people that you plan to pay $50,000, more than $50,000 per year, you will list them here. Now, there may be times when you know that you're going to have a position that is going to pay more than $50,000 a year, but you don't know who is going to be hired for that position. In that case, you will leave the name, you will list under the name to be determined. The title could be whatever the title is, business manager maybe. The mailing address would be to be determined. And in the compensation column, you'll just put the amount of money that you are planning to pay for that position. So that's section B. That's how you handle that. And that's for employees. Let's go down now to section C. And in section C, we're asked to list the names of businesses, and mailing addresses of your 5 highest compensated independent contractors that will receive more than $50,000 per year. And this section talks about people that you're planning to hire, as an independent contractor. So more than likely, those people will have um, their name, of course, but also a name of their business. Because if they're contractors, they probably have their own business. So you would put their name on the title. You could put the name of their business or whatever role they're going to play as a contractor, the mailing address, and compensation amount. In this example, we don't have anybody to fit that category, so we put not applicable. Let's continue on to the next section here. The following yes or no questions relate to past, present, and planned relationships, transactions, or agreements with your officers, directors, trustees, highest compensated employees, and highest compensated independent contractors that you listed in 1A, 1B, and 1C. Now, what we are trying to discover here through these questions, 2A through 4C, 2A through 3B, that's 2A through 3B, we're trying to uncover any type of relationships that exist among the people that are going to be working with your organization, the board of directors, the employees, and the independent contractors. So I went ahead and I answered no for each one of these questions. But it's very important that you read the questions for yourself, refer to the instructions, and make sure that the answer no is the right answer for your organization. But most people that I've worked with in completing their applications always choose no for these as answers to these questions. Let's go down to number 4. In establishing the compensation for your officers, directors, trustees, highest compensated employees, and highest compensated independent contractors listed above, let's answer these questions. Do you, or will the individuals that approve compensation arrangements follow a conflict of interest policy? I can tell you that the answer to that question is yes. Do you or will you approve compensation arrangements in advance of paying compensation? The answer to that question is yes. C. Do you or will you document in writing the date and terms of approved compensation arrangements? The answer there is yes. And I will ask you to refer to your instructions to understand why it's important to answer yes to questions 4A, 4B, and 4C. Let's go on to the next page. We're still talking about compensation and we're still under part 5. Letter D. Do you or will you record in writing the decision made by each individual who decided or voted on compensation arrangements? The answer should be yes. Do you or will you approve compensation arrangements based on information about compensation paid by similarly situated taxable or tax-exempt organizations for similar services, current compensation surveys compiled by independent firms, or actual written offers from similarly situated organizations? So this question is really asking you, have you researched different positions, the compensation for different positions, to make sure that what you are paying or proposing to pay your employees are in line with what is the norm? So the answer should be yes. F. Do you or will you record in writing both the information on which you relied to base your decision and its source? The answer is yes. G. If you answered no to any items on lines 4A through 4F, describe how you set compensation that is reasonable for your officers, directors, trustees, highest compensated employees, and highest compensated independent contractors that you listed in Part 5, lines 1A, 1B, and 1C. So since we didn't say no to any of the questions that were asked, G is irrelevant. Let's go on to 5A. Have you adopted a conflict of interest policy consistent with the sample conflict of interest policy in Appendix A to the instructions? So if you have your instructions in front of you, you can now refer to Appendix A in the instructions to make sure that your conflict of interest policy is in line with that sample in your instructions. And the answer should be yes here. Let's go down to number 6. 6A. Let me just go ahead and say 6A all the way through 9A. 6A through 9A, the answer should be no. And I would highly encourage you to read each one of these questions very thoroughly, 6A through 9A, to make sure that the answer no is also the answer that is applicable or the correct answer for your nonprofit organization. So make sure you read these questions and make sure that you read the instructions regarding the questions to make absolutely sure that the answer no is the right answer for your organization. Because although the answer no is the answer that I've always used for my clients in the past, it may not be the right answer for your organization. So just make sure that you do read the questions and then read the instructions on how to answer the questions to make sure the answer no is the right answer for your organization too. Now let's go down to Part 6. Your members and other individuals and organizations that receive benefits from you. The following yes or no questions relate to goods, services, and funds you provide to individuals and organizations as part of your activities. Your answers should pertain to past, present, and planned activities. So, always think in terms, when you're talking about answering these questions, think in terms of past, present, and planned activities. So 1A, in carrying out your exempt purposes, do you provide goods, services, or funds to individuals? If yes, describe each program that provides goods, services, or funds to individuals. So, more than likely, you're going to provide one of the three things: goods, services, and funds. So you check yes, and then in a short paragraph, just say or explain what type of program is going to provide the goods, services, or funds to individuals. 1B, in carrying out your exempt purposes, do you provide goods, services, or funds to organizations? And if you do, describe it. Well, that means, are you going to help other organizations through your nonprofit organization? And most of the clients that I've worked with in the past, the answer to that question is yes. Let's go down to 2. Do any of your programs limit the provision of goods, services, or funds to a specific individual or group of specific individuals? For example, answer yes if goods, services, or funds are provided only for a particular individual, your members, individuals who work for a particular employer, or graduates of a particular school. If the answer is yes here, explain the limitation and how recipients are selected for each program. Your answer should be no here, because I can't think of an occasion where you would really limit providing your goods and services to individuals that may need your services. Do any individuals, I'm number 3 now, do any individuals who receive goods, services, or funds through your programs have a family or a business relationship with any officer, director, trustee, or any of your highest compensated employees or highest compensated independent contractors listed in 1B, 1A, 1B, or 1C above, going back to those three categories of people. Your board of directors, your employees, or your contractors. Do any of the individuals that you're going to help have any kind of relationship with any of those people? Most people answer no here, but if your answer is yes, all you have to do is explain how they are related and are eligible for the goods, services, or funds. Next, we're going to look at part 7, which is your history. So we're still in video number 3, and we're now talking about part 7, which is your history. The following yes or no questions relate to your history. 1. Are you a successor to another organization? Answer yes if you have taken or will take over the activities of another organization. So if someone is passing over this organization to you and you're taking over that organization, you would put yes here. But if no, you would put no. More than likely, if you're just starting a nonprofit organization yourself, that means you're not taking over for someone else. But if you are, you want to complete Schedule G in the back of this application. Number 2, are you submitting this application more than 27 months after the end of the month in which you were legally formed? Do you remember we talked about the Articles of Incorporation and the date that's stamped on the articles when they have been approved by the Secretary of State's office? Well, this question goes back to that stamp, to that date. And when you look at that date on your articles, if it's been more than 27 months since that date to this date that you are completing the application, then we need to select yes here and complete Schedule E in the back of this application. However, if you have not waited 27 months after the stamp on the articles to complete this application, then you would select no. And most people select no. The last part that we're going to cover in this video number 3 is part 8, which pertains to your specific activities. And I will go ahead and tell you, I will go ahead and advise you to answer no to all of these questions. The following yes or no questions relate to specific activities that you may conduct. Check the appropriate box. Your answer should pertain to past, present, and planned activities, once again, as usual. So, nonprofit organizations cannot support political campaigns in any way. You cannot support any type of legislation or try to influence legislation or anything along those lines. So 2A and 2B pertain to that type of information. So we'll put no for those. For 1, 2A, and 2B will be no. And then 3A, 3B, and 3C talk about gaming activities, and are you going to have gaming activities? Are you going to have people who are going to conduct gaming activities like bingo for you? And the answer should be no there, because nonprofit organizations are not supposed to engage in any type of activities that can be considered as gambling. So 1 through 3B, the answers should be no. However, please read your instructions to make sure that the answer no is the correct answer for your nonprofit organization. The last part of part 8, we're continuing with your specific activities. 4A deals with fundraising. So, do you or will you undertake fundraising? If yes, check all of the fundraising programs you do or you will conduct. So of course you're going to engage in fundraising activities. So you want to select yes for 4A, and then underneath 4A you want to check each type of fundraising activity that you're planning to use in order to raise money for your organization. As you can see in this sample application, we've checked mail solicitations, email solicitations, personal solicitations, foundation grant solicitations, phone solicitations, accept donations on the website, receive donations from other organizations' websites, and government grant solicitations. So all of those things, this particular sample application is planning to use to raise money through fundraising activities. Now, after you have decided that you're going to use these types of activities to raise funds, we need to attach a description of each fundraising program. So, on a separate attachment, you would just have a section for each one of the activities that are selected here, and you would just explain how you're going to conduct fundraising using those activities. For example, you would have a section called mail solicitations, and then you would just explain how you're going to use the mail system or the postal service in order to solicit for funds. And you will continue to create sections for all of the remaining activities here. Now, for question B, C, D, and E, the answer should be no. But again, read the questions, read the instructions to make sure that no is the correct answer for your organization. And all it deals with, those questions deal with, they go a little bit deeper into the fundraising aspect and how you're going to do it, and whether or not you're going to hire outside companies to do fundraising on your behalf, or you're going to create a separate account for anybody that wants you to create a separate account. For example, if you have a major philanthropist that says, I want to give you an investment, but I want you to keep it in an account where I can monitor your transactions, then if that's something you want to do, then you would put yes for the letter E, and you would just describe how that's going to work. But again, normally people answer no for B, C, D, and E. Number 5. 5 all the way through 9C is normally answered with the answer no. So 5 through 9C really talk about different activities that you may or may not be engaged in as a nonprofit organization, and most of my clients answer no for questions 5 all the way through 9C. Again, you will read the instructions to make sure that the answer no is the correct answer for your organization, but more than likely it will be the correct answer for your organization as well. D, 9D. Are your services available to the general public? And the answer should be yes there, unless you can really explain why you wouldn't allow people from the general public to be a part of your program or to participate in your program. And also, you would have to describe or provide an explanation as to why your program is not available to everyone in the general public. And you may have a legitimate reason for that. 10. Do you or will you publish, own, or have rights in music, literature, tapes, artwork, choreography, scientific discoveries, or other intellectual properties? Now, this is a very important question to ponder, because I know a lot of nonprofit organizations that create their own learning materials for classroom training, for example, and that is intellectual property. So you could actually use your intellectual property as a revenue stream if your organization decided to sell that information to other organizations or either to other businesses that might benefit. So be careful when you answer this question and really think it through to make sure that you don't have any type of intellectual property that you've created through your organization, and that could also may be able to use it as a revenue stream. Let's go on to the next page. If I can get there. Okay, we're still on part 8, your specific activities. 11, do you or will you accept contributions of real property, conservation easements, closely held securities, intellectual property such as patents, trademarks, and copyrights, works of art, licenses, royalties, automobiles, boats, planes, or vehicles, or collectibles of any type? So if you would accept these types of items, then you would put yes there. And if you do put yes, you have to describe each type of contribution, any conditions imposed by the donor that gives it to you, and any agreements with the donor regarding the contribution has to be explained. Now, 12A all the way through 14F, 12A to 14F should be answered no unless you are planning to operate your services in a foreign country. So all of the answers on this page from 12A to 14F should be answered as no. Page 11 continued, part 8 continued on the next page. And questions 15 through 22 all should be answered as no, but read the questions, look at the instructions, make sure that no is the correct answer for your organization. But I'm pretty sure that no is the correct answer for your organization. But just make sure, double check. Okay, so now we are going to end video number 3 because we've covered parts 5, 6, 7, and 8. And those were the parts that we wanted to cover in video number 3. So I'm going to end the recording of this video and allow you to complete these sections in your application. And the last video will be video number 4. We're almost there. Thank you very